Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel in Salesforce Developer Interview Question and Answer series. Today we will be continuing with the part 3 video where I will be discussing Apex again. Okay, it's a continuation video. If you have not watched part 1 and part 2, I strongly recommend you to watch those videos first. So let's get started. So today's first question, which is question number 35, is there any other way we can enforce security apart from with sharing keyword, right? Last video we have discussed about the sharing, right? With using with sharing and without sharing. So now it's a continuation of those sharing. And here we want to know how to enforce security to a specific method or lines of code instead of the whole class. If you remember in our last video, we have discussed that, if you use with sharing, the whole class will be run as the user's context, not the system admin context, right? So with that, sharing will be enforced. But now I don't want the whole class to run on a system admin context, but I just wanted to enforce few lines of code or maybe a method. So how do we do that, right? So we can use the following keywords to enforce object level and field level security in Apex code, right? So is accessible, is creatable, is updatable, and is deletable. So these are the methods which we can use and enforce object level and field level security in Apex. So how do we use these methods? So we can use these methods, to check if schema.object type.contact, because this is a contact field, and then we are checking the field, which field we are checking, email, and if it is updatable. So if it is updatable, I mean we have the user is having proper access to update that field, then this method or this line of code will return true, right? If it return true, then it gets into this code block, and then whatever code we write over here will be executed, right? A similar way to check the field level read permission of the contact's email field before querying for this field. So I'm trying to query that field. You remember I discussed in my last video that if the user don't have access to some fields and we are enforcing with the sharing keyword, then the problem might be, it will throw an exception because that user itself doesn't have access to that field, right? So this is the best way we can check whether that particular field is having accessible for that particular user or not, right? So similar way we can write if schema.object type.contact.fields.email.x is accessible, then we can write the sockle query, select email, right? We want to get the emails from contacts where ID in whatever ID we want to provide for this sockle query. So in this way we can enforce the security to a specific method or lines of code. Okay, so next question number 36, what are custom settings? This is really important, right? And in the regular trainings, these questions are ignored, or maybe very less time is spent in the regular training, but it is really important for the real time. Next three questions are very much similar and interconnected and very important. So the question is, what are custom settings? So custom settings are similar to custom objects, right? Same like an object. How do we create an object? We can do so in the custom settings as well. So developers can create a custom set of data and associate custom data for an organization or profile for a specific user. Basically, we can create a data, static data, and create it and then store it into the custom settings. Okay. So all custom settings data is exposed in the application cache, okay, which enables efficient access without the cost of repeat sockle queries to the database. Basically, to get the data from the custom settings, we don't have to write a sockle query. Okay, we have few methods, ready-made methods, which we can write to get the complete data of those custom settings. And the advantage of those custom settings is you don't have to write a sockle query. And it also reduce the number of sockles in our governor limits if we have written so much of code and we don't want to write lot of SOQL queries. I'm not sure if you know that we have governor limits, which we'll discuss in future videos. But one of the governor limit is number of SOQL queries. We should not hit the limit for the number of SOQL queries, right? So this is custom setting is also good in such scenarios, right? Mind it that this is not to store the transactional data, but this is to store some data which is really static. Okay. Formula fields, validation rules, flows, Apex, and SOAP APIs can use this data. So we can access the data from all these areas. And an example I could give for this one is a shipping application requires user to fill in the country codes for international deliveries. Okay. And by creating a list of settings of all the country codes, we can have a quick access to this data without needing to query the database. Let's say, for example, 001 is USA, 002 is maybe UK, 003 is let's say Australia, 004 is India, right? So if they have to enter some code, then they can easily write the code, and with the help of some methods, we can get what exactly the code refers to from those custom settings. Okay. The next question is, how many types of custom settings are there? So custom settings are also multiple types. Okay. Let's see what are the different custom setting types and why do we use each type. Okay. This is important. So there are two types of custom settings available to us. First one is list custom settings. This is the straightforward, right? How do we save the data? It's similar to that. Okay. The second one is hierarchical custom setting. This is really powerful. Okay. Next question is, what is hierarchy custom settings, right? As I said, list custom setting is straightforward. It's same is similar to like how do we save the data into the object. It is very much similar to that. But hierarchy custom setting is really powerful. Okay. So hierarchy custom settings use a built-in hierarchical logic that lets us personalize settings for specific profiles or users. Okay. So I can personalize the data that, this data should be visible only to my system admin profile example. Okay. And this can be visible only to my sales user profile. Okay, this custom setting, a record of this custom setting should be visible only to so and so users. So this is very powerful. So it uses the inbuilt Salesforce hierarchy and then allow us to create the custom settings which can be accessed based on hierarchy. Okay, this is really powerful. The hierarchy logic checks the organization profile and user settings for that current users and returns the most specific or the lowest value. So it checks first the who is accessing that custom settings. Based on that, whatever data we have assigned to that custom setting, it will show that data only. Okay, so it has a lot of control. It is very powerful. Okay. So example for this one, we have stored some data in custom settings and we want to show the data based on user's profile. Then we can use the hierarchy custom settings, right? So we can differentiate the data based on the profile or user as well. Okay. Next question is, what are custom metadata or custom metadata types? Okay. So before even understanding what are custom metadata or custom metadata types, you just want to give you the background. Earlier, we were not having custom metadata type. Earlier, we were having custom settings only. Okay. Later on, Salesforce introduced custom metadata because custom setting is having one problem. Okay. And to solve that problem, Salesforce introduced custom metadata. So now most of the new development is using custom metadata, and they are less and less using custom settings. Okay, if they have created for a project custom settings a long back and they want to update that or enhance that custom settings, then they are using. But if a project where we want to create a new custom settings, so we are not using custom settings, rather we are using custom metadata. Okay, why? What is the difference? Let's go and see. So custom metadata is similar to custom settings or objects, but the only difference is the data stored in custom metadata is also in the format of data. Okay, so earlier custom settings, what we have explained is it seemed like an object, right? I create a structure, like I create a name of the custom setting which is similar to name of the object, and then I can create multiple fields into that, right? So that custom setting, which is a name of the object or name of the custom setting or the fields are stored in the form of metadata in Salesforce org, right? That which we can deploy using our chain set or whatever deployment tool. But the data what we are storing into custom settings was a normal data, like how we have the normal data in our objects, right? What happens is in custom settings also, if you want to add the data, we have to manually create the data. It means we have to enter the data into custom settings in each org if I'm deploying this, right? So a custom metadata type is an object that is used to define the structure for application metadata, the fields of the custom metadata types, and the values in the fields consist only of metadata. The records of custom metadata are also metadata. This is very important point, okay? The difference between custom settings and custom metadata is this point, okay? So the records of the custom metadata type are also metadata. So what is happening? I'll explain you now what was the problem before and now how that's solved with custom metadata. Earlier, I have created for a project, I have created custom settings and I have added some data into it, right? And then because that's just static data, and then I have deployed it into my production org, right? So what was happening is as soon as I deploy in production, that custom setting is empty because I'm just deploying its fields and name of the custom settings, but the data inside is will not be deployable, okay? Because it's a data, right? So what we have to do, we have to load it using whatever, some data loader or whatever it is, right? Or manually, some people create manually as well, right? So we have to do that extra bit of work. But what happens with custom metadata, even the data also stored in the form of metadata. So when you deploy the custom metadata, even the data is in the form of custom metadata. That is the reason we can use the deployment tool to deploy even the data, okay? So now I deploy custom metadata type from one org to another org. I will have the complete custom metadata as well as its data, okay? It's a little bit tricky, but just go ahead and create custom settings as well as custom metadata, add the data in both of this and try to deploy these two things, okay? You will be very clear once you do that, right? So this is really important, okay? So more and more people are using custom metadata types nowadays and not the custom settings, okay? Next question is, what is the advantage of custom metadata over custom settings? Or what is the difference between custom metadata and custom settings? I think I've explained this already. Custom metadata stores data or records in the form of metadata. So it's very easy and handy or easy to migrate from one org to another org, right? Custom metadata can be migrated to other orgs using any Salesforce deployment tool, okay? And whereas custom settings stores data in the form of data, and its structure and fields are in the form of metadata. So its structure and fields can be deployed to the other orgs using deployment tools, but the data should be uploaded using any data loader tool separately as any other data, okay? So that was the problem. That is the reason, we have custom metadata types. So now you create custom metadata and data in it all becomes metadata, and then simply deploy it. Everything will be available in the next org. You don't have to separately load its data, okay? Really important. This is important both for administrators as well as developers, okay? Next question is, what are custom labels? This is also very important. Custom labels are custom text values that can be accessed from Apex classes, okay? Visual Force pages, Lightning components, any field labels or error messages are written in the custom labels instead of hard coding. Basically, the companies used to have best practices, right? They used to follow best practices. So it is a best practice that not to hard code anything in Visual Force pages or Apex classes. Instead, write it in the custom labels and use those custom labels in the Visual Force page or Apex classes, whatever. Okay, this is one advantage of it, right? And there is another use case of custom labels. Okay, so custom labels are generally used for two things in the real time. First one is to avoid hard coding in Apex code or Visual Force pages or Lightning components. Okay, And the second one is you know to create multilingual applications. Okay. This is the second advantage. So if you create custom labels, then this is really helpful to create multilingual applications. Why? For example, I've created a Visualforce page, okay, and label name, I have given first name, okay. I've written in English first name, and I've created another field called last name, right? And then I have created another field on the Visualforce page called age, right? So instead of hard coding this first name, last name, and age in the Visualforce, I should use custom labels, right? And if I use custom labels, in custom labels, if you go and open custom labels, there is an option wherein you can create a similar uh, translation for that first name. Okay, first name, maybe in Spanish you can write what first name is called, right? And for the last name also, you can write what should be it in Spanish, right? And for the age also, what age is called in Spanish, right? So when the application is used in Spanish, automatically that custom label translates to the Spanish translation, and then the application is displayed in Spanish, right? So if your hard code is, then that is not possible. So that is the other use case we have for custom labels. Okay, so even though it has given that we can use it in Visualforce pages, Lightning components, and Apex classes, but I strongly use not to use this. I strongly suggest not to use this in Apex classes. The reason being is custom labels are having limits. Okay, what is the limit? Is we can create 5,000 custom labels. Okay, I've worked in a project, enterprise level projects, wherein we have created so many custom settings used everywhere in the Apex classes, Visualforce pages, Lightning components, and then now we are exhausted with all the custom labels, right? Even though it's a best practice, but I suggest not to use for Apex classes. Okay, the very first reason why we should use for Visualforce pages and Lightning components, because it is used in multilingual application, right? If I want to convert, yes, so I would strongly suggest to use custom labels for Visualforce pages and Lightning components, right? Why I am suggesting not to use in Apex classes is, apart from best practice not to hard code, there is no other advantage of using custom labels in Apex classes, right? So now the people ask, right, okay, if we don't use custom labels, should we hard code? No, you should not hard code. We can use a one common class called maybe constant class. Next question is what is anonymous block? Okay, this is also an important interview question. So anonymous block is Apex code that doesn't get stored in the metadata, right? But that can be compiled and executed. Basically, if I want to, run some ad hoc code, right? So I can use anonymous window. So if you want to run an ad hoc code and see the output, we can use the anonymous window. Okay. So how to open the anonymous window? Go to developer console, debug, open execute anonymous window, and then you will see this window. Here I'm just writing a sample code, and I'm writing system.debug, and I'm executing, and then I'm seeing what will be the result of this. Okay, I don't want to store this code, right? But rather I just want to check the result of what is happening if I write this code. So this type of code you can write in an anonymous window. Otherwise, if you have to write and save the code in an org, then you can use classes and all those things. This is just to on the fly run some code and find the results. Okay, for that reason we can use anonymous window. Next question, can you write a for loop to iterate a list of 10 accounts and set the rating field to hot? So basically this question is just to check how do you use for loop, and what is the what is your style of writing the code and all those things. Okay, it's your wish, how you want to write, but I'm just giving you the sample code over here. So first what I did is list count a list. First I have declared a list, and then instantiated the list, and then a list is equals to, I'm selecting that some 10 randomly 10 accounts, okay, and then system.debug I'm writing just to check what I'm getting in the a list, right? And then I've declared another list called u list. This is just to update the list, and I'm running the for loop, right? So basically I was an interviewer. I want to check how you are writing a for loop, whether you want to you can write it or not, right? So account a, okay, this is just an variable a I'm declaring, colon a list, because a list is of type account. That is the reason I am writing over here account, right? If my a list is of type lead, then I start my for loop as for lead l colon a list, okay? So be careful over here. So this should be, whatever this represents, okay? If this represents string, then you should start string a, okay? If this represents integer, then this should be this is a list of integer, then this should be integer I, okay? If it is yeah, whatever is over here, it should be similar to that, right? So because a list is an account, that's why I have declared I have started my for loop as for account a colon a list, right? And then I'm checking what I'm doing is a dot rating is equals to hot. So as soon as whatever I'm getting in the a, I'm taking that a and updating the rating to hot, whether it is cold or warm. I'm simply updating, and I'm adding that into my u list, means updated list. U list dot add this a I am adding into it, right? I'm closing the for loop. So this will happen until this list completes, okay? Until 10 times, right? Because I have 10 records in my a list. And then what I'm doing, I'm again checking system.debug u list, what is there in the u list. And simply at the last point, what I'm doing is I'm updating the u list, okay? So what will happen? This will update the rating field to hot, okay? This is just a sample question. I want to check, as an interviewer, how you write the code. Next question is, what is an Apex class or a class? Okay. So similar to Java, we can create classes in Apex. A class is a template or blueprint from which objects are created, right? So we can create the class. Object is here. Object is not Salesforce object. Okay. Don't get confused. This is like, instance of a class basically. Okay. So here the object is an instance of a class. Next question is, what are access modifiers we use for Apex class? Okay, so access modifiers can be for methods as well as for classes, but here I'm specifically talking about access modifiers for classes. Okay, so the first access modifier is private, public, and global. So for the classes, Apex classes, we have 3 access modifiers. Next question is, explain more about private access modifier. Okay. So for private, this is the default access modifier for in a class. Okay. If you don't declare anything before the class for in a class, it will automatically become private. Okay. That is, if you don't specify any access modifier for an inner class, it is considered as private. Okay. So top level classes can have either public or global, but cannot have private access modifiers. Top level class means main class or the first class where I'm writing cannot be a private. It should be the public or global. Okay, let's see public and global in a minute. But yeah, this is how it. Top level classes can have private access modifier if it is used as @is test annotation. Okay, so annotation we will be discussing in future questions, but if we can write only private for the top level class for @is test only, go ahead and try it, okay, and see what is happening if you are able to write the private for the regular class, and if you're able to write the private for @is test class or not. Okay. Next question is, explain more about public and global access modifier. These are the most frequently used access modifier. Okay. So public class is visible in the application or namespace. Okay. If you are not aware of namespace, basically for an application, I have created, let's say in my org, I have created multiple application, right? And I have declared public, and this is that this public class is available only for that application, okay, using the namespaces. If I want to explain your namespace better, right, so go ahead and see if you have any app exchange package installed in your org, right? If as soon as you install app exchange package, every field will have a namespace, every class will have a namespace before it, okay. Let's suppose my app exchange package is conga, okay. So even if I create a object, right, it will give me, if I create an object called as employee, right, so how it creates my object is conga underscore employee underscore underscore c, right. That initial conga is just a namespace, right. So it happens for the classes also, right. So if I declare it as public, then it will be available for my that conga package, the whole conga package, this class will be available. But if I have another package, if I've created another package called maybe DocuSign, those classes, public classes of conga may not be visible into the DocuSign classes. Okay, this is just an example I'm giving. These are the managed package, but you can explore using creating some packages or namespaces in your orgs as well. Okay, so global classes is visible everywhere in the org. Okay, if I've created a class with a global in conga, then that can be accessible everywhere in the org. Okay, so there is no restriction for the global. Okay, a class with the web service method must be declared as global. So always if we are creating web service class, then it should be global. If you try with public, it will give you an error. Okay, so if a method or inner class is declared as global, then the outer class or top level class must also be a global, right? You cannot write a public class and then inside it you cannot create a global in a class, right? That is not permitted. So these are the access modifiers for the class. Okay, next question is what is a constructor? Okay, constructor is a method which has the same name as the class name. Okay, so if I create a method with the same name as a class name, that is nothing but the constructor. Okay, so a constructor is a code that is invoked when an instance of a class is created. As soon as we call the class, right, the first method which is invoked is the constructor method itself. Okay, so constructor method is not a mandatory to be created, right? So it's not mandatory. If you don't create a constructor, that's fine, right? Only if we need it, it will be created. But behind the scene, if you don't create it, the compilers create the constructor itself. Okay, so if a user doesn't create a constructor, then the default constructor is created. Okay, user defined constructors can be with arguments or without arguments. User defined constructor means the constructor which you have created is nothing but the user defined constructor. If you don't create any constructors, a system will create by itself. That is nothing but system defined constructors. Okay, so this user defined constructor can be with arguments. Argument in the sense, you can pass some values with some parameters, right? So with arguments as well as without arguments. Okay, so for example, I have a class, lead class, right? First I have created a constructor. Because the class name is lead, I have created a method called lead. So this is nothing but a constructor. So I have a constructor with no arguments, right? So a constructor with one argument I have created. Implementation is not given over here. This is just for an example, but yeah, this is how it looks like, with arguments and without arguments. So I've created another constructor with one argument called Boolean call. Okay, so if there is another constructor with two arguments, public lead again, string email and Boolean call. So this constructor is with two arguments, right? Though this constructor has the same arguments as the one above, they are in a different order. So this is legal. So this one is public leads, Boolean call and string email. So here what is happening, even though these two are same, but order of this parameters are different. Here first is email and second is call. Here first is call and second is email, which is also fine, which is also legal. So there are many ways you can create a constructor. So normally we create constructor, just to initialize some values. As soon as anything runs in the class, I want, this values to be initialized with some values. So that is the reason we use normally constructor. Okay, just go ahead and try it. Okay, use system.debugs and try to see, how the values are getting initialized if you use constructor and all those things. Okay, explore it. Next question is, what is the difference between static and instance methods in Salesforce? This is really important, very important. Okay, static methods are the methods which can be called without the instance of a class, whereas instance methods are the methods which requires an instance of its class to be created before it can be called, right? So basically static methods doesn't require to be instantiated, right? You just name of the class dot name of the method and then call if it is a static method, right? But if it is an instant method, you have to first instantiate it. Okay, let's see the example what I'm talking about. So example of a static method, public class, utility class. Okay, basically this static methods are mostly used in the utility classes, where we don't want it to be instantiate every time we call, right? So I'm creating a utility class, and then I've created a method, static method, public static string get country. Okay, this is just an example. So as soon as this is written, I get a country called Singapore. Okay, then how I will call this one? So this method can be called directly. How? String my country. In my other class, I'm just writing the string, and my country is equals to utility class, means I'm writing the name of the class, and then dot get country simply. Okay, dot get country. Then I will get the value Singapore. This is static, right? But let's see the example of instance. So here I have written the same class, but only missing is static keyword is missing over here. Okay, so which is nothing but the instance method. If there is no static keyword, then it's an instance method. So how do we call this one? So this method needs an instance to be created before calling. Okay, so utility class u is equals to new utility class, means we are instantiating. Okay, we have created a instance of a class. U is an instance of a class. Then u dot. So then string my country is equals to u dot country. Then only I will get the Singapore. Okay. So basically, yeah, similarly, we will have instance and static variables also, which is very important. Why I'm saying it's important? Because in future maybe videos, we will be learning, how to avoid recursive trigger, right? So where we will use static variables. Okay, here I'm showing you method, but we can use static variables also. So which is very important. So you should know how we create static versus instance methods, or static versus instance variable. Okay, next question is what is an interface? This is also important. Okay, an interface is like a class in which none of the methods have been implemented. Basically, we will have a class, but there is no implementation. In the sense, we create the method, but we don't write any logic of that method. So that is nothing but interface. This is an OOPS concept. You should all know, but interviewers sometimes check this, especially if an interviewer is coming from a Java background, then definitely he will ask this question. Okay, so an interface is like a class in which none of the methods have been implemented. So the method signatures are there, but the body of each method is empty. Okay, why do we do that? Let's see. So to use an interface, another class must be implement it by providing a body for all of the methods contained in the interface. Okay, so I created a few methods, then I should implement those methods in some other class. Okay, example. So here is the definition of the purchase order interface. I've created this interface public. If I write the keyword interface, then it becomes the interface. I have created a purchase order interface. Okay, interface class, and then I am just giving creating a method called double discount. Okay, because the whole class is interface. That is the reason this method will become interface only. Okay, so double discount, but I have not given any implementation of discount over here. So what I will do, I will go ahead and in this example, this class implements the purchase order interface for customer purchase order. Okay, so public class customer purchase order implements purchase order. Okay, I'm implementing my interface purchase order, and here what I'm doing is public double discount. Okay, return 0.5. So 5% discount I'm giving. 5% discount I'm giving to whom? I'm giving to for customer purchase orders. Okay. In a similar way, this class implements the purchase order interface for employee purchase orders. Okay. So same method. The method is same, but I am another implementation of the interface for employees. Okay. So this implementation is for customer and this implementation is for employees. Okay. So public class employee purchase order implements purchase order. Again, I'm implementing purchase order, but here what I'm doing is public double discount return 10%. Okay. So for employees, I am my implementation gives employees 10%, and for customers I'm giving 5% discount. So I can give another example for interface. This is very high level example, but just relate to the example which I have explained just now. I can use the interface in my maybe payroll also, right? So maybe I can implement a interface called payroll, implement interface method payroll, and for each country I can define separate implementation for that payroll, right? Because payroll for India is completely different than the payroll for the United States and the payroll for Australia, etc. Right? So in those cases, we can implement the interfaces. Okay. So again, this is what we have for today, and we still have a lot of Apex questions, very interesting questions coming up. So stay tuned. I will be again continuing Apex questions in my next video as well. And then I will go with the specific videos, like one view for whole video for trigger, and then another whole video for batch classes or asynchronous programming, right? And maybe similar again another video, dedicated video for integrations, right? And I'm not sure if one video is enough for integration. So likewise, I have designed it. So stay tuned. Okay. As I said, I always use help.salesforce.com as well as Trailhead for all the references, so that I can give you the latest and up-to-date information. Thanks for watching. I hope this video helped you prepare for your Salesforce developer interview and crack your next job. If you have any questions which you want me to include in my videos, please post it in the comments below. And and if you like this video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe to my YouTube channel right now. That way you don't miss the Salesforce developer interview question and answer videos like this one. Thank you.